Hello puppies, in this video we're going to be comparing Wriothesley Constellations to his weapons refinements. This is mainly for the whales. If you want to whale on him, we're going to see the correct way to do it. Should you get the weapon, the constellations, the refinements, or to which point should you switch and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's begin. Alright, so starting off with his weapon, the cashflow supervision. I'm going to do like a separate complete review video on this weapon, probably sometime in the future. But for right now, for Wriothesley, it just gives you attack. It gives you crit rate, and then it gives you normal attacks damage bonus and charge attacks damage bonus, and also some attack speed. So that's pretty much what this weapon gives you. When you refine it, it's going to increase the attack and normal attack and charge attacks damage bonus. The crit rate is just from the substat. So for each refinement, you're going to gain like a 4% attack increase, also a 4% normal attacks damage increase, and then a 3.5% charge attacks damage bonus increase. So yeah, the damage increase you're going to get from R0 in this weapon is going to depend heavily on which weapons you had before. I was just generalize here, but like if you had a 5-star weapon, just mainly a 5-star weapon, especially like the Wriothesley's Remembrance, like Scaramouche's weapon, or Skyward, Memory of Dust, stuff like that, you're generally gonna see around like a 20% damage increase from these weapons. Again, it depends on which weapon, which team, like which refinement, stuff like that. It heavily depends. It could be less or more than 20%, but generally speaking, you're gonna see like an average of a 20% damage increase from getting this weapon after a 5-star weapon. I did a tier list for his weapons, by the way, so if you want to check it out, you can. But yeah, if you have a 5-star weapon already, you're probably going to see a 20% damage increase or something around that, like 25, maybe 18, something around that. And now if you have a 4-star weapon, the thing is there are not even many 4-star weapons that are going to work on him that well. It's pretty much just like 3, the Solar Pearl, the Witsit, and then the Flow of Purity. If you have one of those, you're going to see quite a significant damage increase. It's going to be around like a 35% damage increase, which is pretty good. Again, it depends on which weapon you have and like which refinement you have it on, but generally speaking, you're gonna be seeing around like a 35% damage increase from most 4-star weapons. With the Witsit, it might be less if you have like the buffs active, but the thing is you're not gonna always have them active, so it's just an inconsistent weapon, so it doesn't count. So yeah, for 4-star weapons, generally speaking, it's gonna be around like a 35% damage increase when you get this weapon at R1. For refinements, generally you're gonna gain like a 7% damage increase for each refinement, so it's gonna be around like a 28% damage increase from R1 to R5 in this weapon. Like around that, it heavily depends on like the team and constellation and stuff like that, but generally speaking, it's gonna be around that. Alright, so now we explained what his weapon gives. Now let's move on to his constellations. So his first constellation is that simply you're just gonna get the attack bonus, the charge attack bonus from the passive without even being less than 60% HP. Usually you're gonna have to keep your HP less than 60%. Now it's gonna happen if you have your HP less than 60%, but also if you enter your elemental skill state, then you're also going to gain the passive without even doing anything. So that's pretty good. It's going to allow you to do your charge attacks, like your special charge attacks, more consistently. Also, it's going to be once every 2.5 seconds, every 5 seconds. So you're just going to be doing more charge attacks. Also, it's going to increase the damage bonus you're getting in your special charge attacks. So that's also very good. And then it's also going to increase the duration of your elemental skill. That's also cool. So pretty much what C1 does is basically allows you to do more special charge attacks and also buffs them. That's pretty much it. The thing is about C1, or the best thing, is that it's going to remove like the 60% HP condition, and that's going to open up a lot of teams for Wriothesley, especially with healers like Bennett, Kokomi, I don't know, a lot of healers that can heal you above 60%, which is most healers. Now you're going to be able to play them without any like drawbacks. The thing is with Bennett, before you were able to play him anyway, even at C0, because simply he's just better than the passive, but now you're going to be able to like have them both. You're going to be able to have the Bennett buff and also then your charge attacks buff without even having to worry about anything. Even if you're healed above 60%, you're just going to activate it from, having your elemental skill. So it's going to make him more, flexible and consistent, especially teams wise. You're not able to use like healers before. Now you can, which is pretty good. Also, it's going to increase your damage quite a lot because you're going to be doing a lot more charge attacks and they're going to be stronger, which is pretty good. And obviously, if you have C1, you want to include them in your rotations more because it's just going to be easier to do them, and that's going to result in quite a bit of damage. Overall, C1 is going to be around like a 25% damage increase, but that's like without counting, as I said, the flexibility it provides. It's a good quality of life constellation. Also, it's going to open up a lot of teams, and then also it's going to give you a 25% damage increase. So just keep that in mind. It's not only a 25% damage increase, it's a good constellation overall. So yeah, that's pretty much it with C1. It just buffs your charge attacks and allows you to use them more. C2 is that for each stack you have from your passive, that's gonna like increase your attack. Now it's also gonna increase your elemental burst damage by 40%. So the maximum number of stacks is gonna be 5. So you're gonna have a 200% damage increase on your elemental burst, which is huge. That's pretty much it for C2. It's just gonna increase your elemental burst damage. Now your elemental burst is not like a huge part of your damage, but still a 200% damage increase is still gonna matter. So generally speaking, it's gonna result in around like a 20% damage increase, which is still pretty good. So yeah, that's it for C2. For C3, it's just a level increase for normal attacks. That's like your basic talent you're gonna be using a lot. So a level increase on that is gonna be pretty good. It's actually not gonna result in like a huge damage increase because at this point you're gonna be getting damage also from your elemental burst. So your damage is kind of like diversified a little bit, but it's still gonna result in around like an 11% damage increase. So it's still decent. C4, it's gonna increase your HP that you're gonna get back after using like your charge attack. And then if you heal yourself more than 100%, so like if you overheal, if you're on field, your attack speed is gonna be increased by 20%. If you're not on field, then your party member's attack speed is gonna be increased by 10%. So this constellation is just pretty much more healing and then an attack speed increase. A 20% attack speed increase is actually pretty good because it's gonna be using, you know, his normal attacks a lot, but it's still not really like super good to be honest. For C4 especially, I wouldn't really say it's worth it. You're gonna be able to fit in a couple more normal attacks, but that's about it. The rest of the constellation, which is like, it's gonna buff your party members, it's kind of whatever. You're probably not gonna be using Wriothesley to buff your other party members, the DPS, so it's not really that important. The main thing is that it's gonna give you a 20% attack speed increase, and it's not really gonna matter as much. Let me see, it's gonna give you around like a 10% damage increase overall, which is kind of meh in my opinion. So I'd say C4 is not really that good. C5 is just gonna increase the level of your elemental bursts around a 5% damage increase. It's pretty much just a worse version of C2, ironically. Yeah, I'd say C5 alone is definitely a skip. And then finally C6 is gonna increase the crit rate of your special charge attacks, and also it's gonna increase its crit damage by 80%. The crit rate is gonna be increased by 10%. And then when you unleash it, it's gonna create like an additional icicle that deals 100% of its damage. So pretty much the same damage, like 100%. And then this damage is gonna count in as charge attacks damage also, so it's gonna be buffed by every single buff you have for your charge attacks, which is pretty good. So pretty much it's just gonna double your charge attacks damage. It's gonna increase your crit rate and then crit damage on your charge attacks, and then whenever you do a charge attack, it's gonna do 2 instead of 1. It's actually a pretty good constellation because by this point your charge attack is gonna be a good you know, chunk of your damage. It's already gonna be having all the buffs from like C1 and stuff like that, so it's already strong, and then you're gonna buff it even more, and then it's gonna pretty much just double its damage, which is pretty good. I also think like the internal cooldowns from your normal charge attacks and then the constellations, like extra damage, are gonna be separate, so you're probably gonna be able to melt them both if you're playing like a melt team. So you're just gonna have like a pyro enabler, and then you're gonna be able to melt both attacks, which is pretty huge. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be a lot of damage. Generally speaking, it depends on the team, but it's gonna result in around like a 31% damage increase, which is pretty good for C6. Wouldn't really say it's nothing like spectacular for C6, but it's pretty decent. You know, it's not gonna change the way you play him. I'll say there are like better constellations like C1 for example, but it's still pretty decent. Alright, so now finally for the conclusion, how should you whale for Wriothesley? So here's the table for all of the refinements and constellations and how much damage increase they provide. Generally speaking, I would say a good plan for Wriothesley is going to be this. So first of all, you'd want to get his C1. I think his C1 is actually more important than his weapon, to be honest, because again, it opens up a lot of teams and makes him easier to play, and then it's also going to give you a decent damage increase, especially if you already have like a 5-star weapon. I think with all of these combined, also the C1 is gonna be cheaper than getting his weapon. Well, it depends on like where you at in the pay and stuff like that, but generally speaking, starting off from 0, it's gonna be cheaper to get his C1 than to just get his weapon. So yeah, for this, I would say just probably get his C1 first, unless you don't have any 5-star weapons on him. And again, as I said, check out my tier list for him to see like his best weapons. Most of them are just 5 stars. Also, I've seen a lot of people complain about that, saying like it's just a stars weapon tier list or something like that. I mean, what do you want me to do? His best weapons are just 5 stars. That's it. Just like a normal DPS. 5 stars have higher attacks and stuff like that. So they're just gonna be better. It's not me. I'm not making this. But yeah, if you don't have a 5-star weapon and you have a 4-star weapon and you're close to like a weapon on the P and you're really like Wriothesley, I would say maybe go for his weapon. But generally speaking, I would say just start off with getting C1. Then after that, the second step is gonna depend. If you have a 5-star weapon, just get his C2. C2 is gonna be better probably. If you don't have a 5-star weapon, then you should probably get his weapon at this point. Because like you don't want to get his C2 and use a 4-star weapon. It's gonna be kind of The weapon is gonna be like kind of bottlenecking your damage, I would say at this point. So if you have his C1 and then you don't have his weapon and you still want to wail on him, I would say just go for his weapon at this point. After that, if you want to go up to C6, I would say continue. If you don't want to go up to C6, I would say just stop. C3, C4, C5 are not really that good alone by themselves. So I wouldn't really recommend just going any further than C2 if you're not planning to C6 him. So I would say the next step is, to be honest, is either just go for C6 or stop. And then finally, obviously after that, if you got his C6, you can refine his weapon. It's not going to be a much of like a damage increase, but hey, if you're wailing, then go for it. So yeah, for Wriothesley, to repeat really quick, just get his C1. If you don't have a weapon, get his weapon. If you already have a 5-star weapon, just get his C2. Obviously, if you get his C2, then the next thing is to get his weapon. Or if you got his weapon and you want to wail a little bit more, get his C2. These are going to be like pretty much the same level of like priority. Eventually, you'd want to get them both before you continue. After that, if you got them both, you'd want to go for a C6 if you want to go more. If you're not planning to go for a C6, then just stop at C2 and his weapon. And then if you went for a C6, then you can obviously just refine his weapon. That's pretty much it. So yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video. Peace.